named for an unknown French fur trader that was killed near here in 1800, Frenchman Butte, Saskatchewan. It's Sunday, May 25th, 2014. First Avenue, and looking westward along the North Saskatchewan River Valley. Fort Pitt is around the bend down there, about 15k, established by the Hudson's Bay Company in 1830 on the old Carleton Trail, about halfway between Fort Edmonton and Fort Carleton. Prairie View Community Church looks to be the former United Church. I think I hear a feedlot. River Road comes in from the left from the old government ferry landing down on the river. First Avenue South, and I'm sure you'll recognize one of the most photographed buildings in Saskatchewan, the Butte Brothers from 1929, I think. First Street West heads up the hill, past the station. This is the church from higher up. The station is behind the trees here. And this is Railway Avenue, 7 o'clock in the morning. Looking southeast. They could make arrangements to stay at the Valley View Hotel. First store here was built in 1927 in anticipation of the arrival of the Canadian National Railway. First Street West continues upwards, forms a triangle with First Avenue before it heads left up the hill to High Street, whereon sits the Riverview Community Church. Somebody's out and about. Towards the museum is this little park. Looks to maybe be a mini golf installation, perhaps based on some of the earlier buildings in the neighborhood. And a shout out to the folks of the Onion Lake Band, whose big reserve is off to the northwest, maybe 10K. The first elevator in Frenchman Butte was built by the British American Grain Company in 1928. The second was built by the pool in 1929, and they were both closed by the pool in 1977. And looking up Main Street toward First Avenue, there's the post office. The first one in the neighborhood was established by J.A. Wild on September 15, 1911, called Monterey. The office's name was changed to Frenchman's, singular, possessive, Butte on August 1st, 1921. And finally, on December 2nd, 1948, the possessive was dropped. Looking along Railway Avenue, mostly westward. And speaking of railway, there's the third-class station that the CN built in 1929 at mile 28.2 of the Balmy Sub, the end of the line. These buildings are part of the museum collection. The red shed in the background houses artifacts. And though it was a little way out in the country, Big Hill School was the only school for a few years. I'll pause here to note that the Cree warriors of wandering spirit embarrassed the Canadians that day, outflanking the Alberta Mounted Rifles at one point and almost capturing the supply train. General Strange was so discomfited that he packed up his artillery piece and retreated to Fort Pitt. Now maybe archetypical of Canadian battles, more akin to a hockey brawl. Nobody was killed, beat up, but still alive. I think those are cliff swallows nesting on the side of that third-class station, in situ since 1929. Canadian National built the Balmy subdivision out from Spruce Lake on the Turtleford sub between North Battleford and St. Walburg. Where they thought they were going to go, I don't know. Maybe Fort Pitt and up the valley to Edmonton, but the steel got no farther than here. You can trace the right of way out into the woods to the northwest for a few miles. There's a Y out there for turning things around, and a few of the relics sheltered behind the school. Service on the sub was suspended by order of the superintendent on April 25th, 1976. And the rails were pulled in 1979. And there's the last locomotive in Frenchman Butte. GMC, good one. One of the places the Carleton Trail across the North Saskatchewan was right here at a place called Yankee Bend. In 1913, the province installed a ferry there, and a settlement began to grow. The place became more substantial, of course, with the arrival of the railway. Frenchman Butte never was incorporated as a village. It became an organized hamlet in 1959. Population peaked in 1961 at 111, down to 64 in 2006. It's a ward of the rural municipality of Frenchman Butte No. 501, which itself was established in 1914, and a side view of the Butte Brothers establishment. Pretty good looking Legion. I mentioned that for the first few years, the kids had to go to Big Hill School out of town. And in 1935 was decided to convene classes in town, and they were held in several different venues over the years until a dedicated building was erected in 1945. It was closed in 1980, and now the kids go to Paradise Hill. In 1976, the Department of Highways built a bridge across the river a few miles south of Deer Creek and kind of turned Frenchman's Butte into a backwater. Have to go out of your way to get here, like Hewitt's Landing farther to the west. Interesting that the Museum Society would choose to hang a train board from a competing railway. This was, of course, Canadian National. The Butte seen from Highway 310K to the south. In the fall of 1857, John Palliser led his British North American exploring expedition up the Carleton Trail to winter in Fort Pitt. He noted Frenchman's Butte as French Knoll on his maps. Frenchman Butte, Saskatchewan.